Close your eyes. Take a breath in, slow and easy, and let it go, and again. In and out. You are standing at the entrance to a corridor. It stretches ahead of you, long, wide, clean, and almost entirely empty. The floors are smooth, the ceiling is high. The lights are on, but dim to their nighttime level. Not dark, not bright, just that particular quality of illumination that says the day is over and no one is in a hurry. A warm, amber wash from recessed fixtures overhead. A cooler strip of blue somewhere near the floor. A subtle wayfinding light that guides the eye forward without demanding it. Ahead of you, the corridor extends perhaps 300 meters before. It curves gently to the right and disappears. Along each wall, the shops have pulled their security shutters down, smooth aluminum panels, dimpled or perforated, that catch the light and reflect it back in soft, scattered patterns. Between the shutters, the walls are clad in stone or glass or brushed metal or wood veneer panels, depending on which airport you are in and which terminal and which decade it was built in. Everything is clean, everything is quiet. You are in an airport corridor late at night, and there is nowhere you need to be. Begin to walk slowly down the corridor. You are not rushing to a gate. You have no flight to catch. You have no luggage pulling at your shoulder. You are simply walking slowly down this long and quiet hall, and the air is comfortable and still, and your footsteps are soft, and ahead of you the corridor continues. Let yourself settle into the walk. Airport corridors, the long internal hallways that connect terminals to gates, concourses to check-in halls, arrivals to departures, are among the most extensive interior spaces that human beings have ever built. The longest airport concourse in the world is in the McNamara Terminal at Detroit Metropolitan Wayne County Airport in Michigan, USA. It stretches for approximately 1.6 kilometers, nearly a full mile, in a single gracefully curved arc. If you were to walk its entire length without stopping, at a comfortable pace, it would take you about 20 minutes. 20 minutes of corridor. 20 minutes of carpet and ceiling and recessed lights and gates numbered sequentially from 1 to somewhere past 70. 20 minutes of the particular enclosed world that a great airport concourse creates. Its own microclimate, its own acoustic signature, its own rhythm of life that is entirely separate from the city outside. During the aviation day, the McNamara Terminal's main corridor thrums with activity. It is one of the primary hubs of Delta Airlines, and at peak hours the concourse handles tens of thousands of passengers. Families with strollers, business travelers with rolling bags, airport staff on electric carts that beep softly as they pass, airline crews walking in their neat uniforms with that particular unhurried efficiency that comes from having done this walk hundreds of times. But at night, the corridor is empty, and the light changes, and the sound changes, and it becomes something else entirely. A space of a different character. Long and still and oddly peaceful. The same geometry as before, but inhabited differently. Inhabited by its own quiet. Let that quiet be around you now. Walk slowly. Notice the floor beneath your feet. Airport flooring is one of the most carefully considered design decisions in the entire architectural program of a terminal building. It has to be durable. It will be walked on by hundreds of millions of feet over its lifetime, dragged over by wheeled luggage, rolled over by service carts, cleaned nightly with industrial machines. It has to be safe, slip-resistant when wet, visible enough to show hazards, ADA-compliant in its transitions between surfaces. It has to be beautiful, or at least not ugly, which in a space this large and this public is a meaningful constraint. And it has to be maintainable, repairable in sections without the whole floor needing to come up, because an airport cannot shut down for 3 months while the floors are redone. The most common airport flooring material is terrazzo, a composite surface made of marble chips, quartz, granite or glass, embedded in cement or resin, then ground and polished to a smooth, lustrous finish. Terrazzo has been used in important buildings for centuries. Its origins are in 15th century Venice, where craftsmen discovered that leftover marble chips from larger stone-cutting jobs could be embedded in clay to create a beautiful and durable floor. Modern terrazzo uses epoxy resin binders instead of clay. which allows for finer detail, more vivid color, and greater durability. The terrazzo floors at major airports are often extraordinary works of art in their own right. The floor of the international terminal at Los Angeles International Airport features a complex geometric pattern in shades of grey, cream, and gold. The floor of the departure hall at Oslo Gardermoen Airport in Norway uses a pattern of warm tones that reference the grain of Norwegian pinewood, echoing the wooden structural elements of the building above. The floor of Terminal 3 at Beijing Capital International Airport, designed by Norman Foster and Partners, uses a color gradient that shifts from warm amber near the check-in hall to cool blue at the departure gates, a subtle architectural way of guiding passengers through the space. At night, when the terminal is empty and the overhead lights are dimmed, the terrazzo floor comes into its own. Without thousands of feet obscuring it, the pattern is fully visible, spreading out in all directions like a vast, still illustration. The polished surface reflects the overhead lights in long, soft strips, and the colors, warm or cool, geometric or organic, simply are without anyone walking over them. You are walking over them now, slowly, and they are beautiful. In some airport concourses, particularly older American ones built in the 1960s and 70s, the floor is carpet. Airport carpet is a subject of surprising cultural significance. It is designed to be extremely durable. The industry specification is typically for carpet that can withstand 200,000 or more foot traffic cycles before showing significant wear, and extremely easy to clean. It is usually a tightly woven, low-pile commercial carpet in a dense, complex pattern that serves a specific functional purpose, hiding dirt and stains. A carpet with a busy geometric pattern in multiple colors is significantly better at concealing the small marks and spills of daily airport life than a plain or simple patterned carpet would be. The most famous airport carpet in the world is almost certainly the old carpet at Portland International Airport in Oregon, USA. It was a teal and green geometric design installed in the 1980s, and it became an unlikely cultural phenomenon. Portlanders loved it with an affection that surprised everyone. There were t-shirts and socks printed with the pattern, Instagram accounts dedicated to photos of people's feet against its surface, and genuine public mourning when the airport announced it would be replaced during the terminal renovation. The carpet was eventually retired in stages, with sections preserved in the airport's museum and distributed to fans. The new terminal building, opened in 2024, features new flooring with a design that subtly pays homage to the original. There is something comforting about the idea of a floor so familiar it becomes beloved, of a pattern that millions of feet have walked over that became a landmark, not in the geographical sense but in the personal one, a place that people return to and recognize and feel at home in, even in the context of one of the world's great transit spaces. Let your feet find the floor beneath them. Let it be familiar. Let it be safe. Look up. Airport ceilings are ambitious things. The corridor you are walking through has a ceiling that is perhaps 8 or 10 meters above you, high enough that the space never feels closed in, high enough that the upper reaches of the walls fade into shadow, high enough that you feel small but not oppressed. The structural elements of the ceiling are visible in many airports. Steel beams, concrete coffers, timber ribs. The undersides of the roof structure expressed, honestly, not hidden behind a false ceiling but shown as they are. This architectural philosophy, called honest structure, or sometimes associated with the high-tech movement in architecture, was popularized in the 1970s and 1980s, and airports became some of its most spectacular showcases. At Stansted Airport near London, designed by Norman Foster and opened in 1991, the ceiling of the terminal building is a series of large modular domes, each carried on a single central column, that together create a vast, undulating roof that fills the entire space with natural light from above. The effect from below is extraordinary. You are standing under what seems to be a sky made of geometry, a forest of smooth white, domes receding to the horizon. At night, when the natural light is gone and only the building's own lighting operates, the domes glow from within, softly, creating an atmosphere that is somehow both monumental and intimate. The ceiling of Terminal 2 at Incheon International, Airport in South Korea rises to over 40 meters at its highest point, roughly the height of a 13-story building, and is covered in a skin of perforated metal panels that diffuse daylight and artificial light alike into a uniform, gentle glow. At night, this ceiling becomes a field of subtle luminescence above you, the perforations catching the light at different angles, the metal surface moving almost imperceptibly as the building's ventilation system circulates the air. At the new international terminal at Changi Airport, the Jewel, the ceiling is not really a ceiling at all, but a glass dome, and through it, if you are inside, you can see the sky. But in the corridors that lead to and from the terminals, the ceilings are lower, more intimate, designed for the scale of a person walking rather than a person gazing upward in wonder. The ceilings of older airport corridors tell different stories. The departure concourse at Dulles International Airport near Washington, D.C., designed by Eero Saarinen and opened in 1962, has a gently curving concrete roof that seems to hover above the walls, supported on angled concrete columns that lean outward like trees in a slow-motion fall. Saarinen designed the whole building, the sweeping roof, the mobile lounges that carried passengers to distant aircraft, the layout of the concourse, as a unified statement about flight, about the promise of aviation, about the future as it appeared in the early 1960s. The roof of the main terminal building at Dulles is one of the great works of American architecture, and the corridors that extend from it carry something of its ambition even in their smaller scale. Breathe in. The ceiling is high above you, the air is clean and cool, the lights are warm and quiet. The walls of an airport corridor do a great deal of work. On the land side, the public areas before security, the walls are often covered in advertising. Backlit panels for airlines, hotels, car rental companies, luxury goods. The images always large and luminous, always showing people who are happy and well-rested and effortlessly stylish. But airside, in the secure concourses and departure halls, the advertising is lighter, and the walls are given more room to simply be themselves. In many airports, the walls of the main concourse corridors are covered with art. The art programs at airports are often substantial enterprises, curated by dedicated museum professionals with rotating exhibitions and permanent installations that treat the airport corridor as a gallery space. The reasoning is straightforward. Millions of people pass through airport corridors every year, more than pass through most dedicated museums, and the captive nature of the audience, waiting, walking, with nothing particular to look at, makes them unusually receptive to the art they encounter. The Denver International Airport Art Program is one of the most extensive in American aviation. The airport has 35 permanent art installations scattered through its corridors and terminals, including a 28-foot gargoyle sculpture that peers out from behind a conveyor belt, and murals that cover entire walls of the main hall. The art was controversial when the airport opened in 1994. Some of it is genuinely provocative, but it has become part of the airport's identity, something that sets it apart from the generic experience of most American airports. At Charlotte, Douglas International Airport in North Carolina, the main concourse, Concourse D, a long and busy corridor, is decorated with rocking chairs. Rows of traditional wooden rocking chairs, arranged in clusters, available for any passenger to sit in and rock gently while waiting for their flight. It is an extraordinary design decision, warm and human and specific to place. North Carolina has a long tradition of rocking chair craftsmanship, and the sight of the rocking chairs in the empty night concourse, all of them still, all of them waiting, has a particular quietness to it. The walls of some airport corridors incorporate windows that look not outward to the airfield, but inward, to spaces within the terminal. At Changi Airport's Terminal 1, the main concourse corridor has windows that look into an orchid garden, a living garden with living plants growing behind glass in a climate-controlled space within the building. The orchids are extraordinary. Hundreds of species, arranged along a gentle slope, their delicate forms pressing close to the glass. Passengers walking down the corridor pass them without necessarily stopping, but the presence of growing, living things within the corridor, the soft colors, the subtle movement of leaves in the ventilated air, changes the quality of the space. Let yourself imagine that as you walk. On your right, through glass, a garden of orchids. Their colors, white, pink, deep purple, pale yellow, soft and still behind the glass. The corridor air around you is steady and climate-controlled. The garden air on the other side of the glass is slightly different, marginally warmer, more humid, fragrant with the particular faint sweetness of orchid blossoms. You can almost smell it. Walk on, slowly. Airport lighting is one of the most technically complex and carefully calibrated aspects of terminal design. A modern airport corridor is lit by many overlapping systems. The primary overhead lighting, usually recessed LED fixtures in the ceiling or continuous LED strips running along the tops of the walls, provides the general illumination that allows people to walk and read and see. But this primary lighting is supplemented by dozens of secondary systems. Wayfinding lights in the floor that indicate the direction of travel, accent lights in the walls that highlight architectural features, backlit panels in the retail areas, emergency lighting systems that activate automatically if the primary power fails, task lighting in the gate areas where staff need to read documents and check screens. The color temperature of the light matters enormously. Light is measured in Kelvin. Warm light, like candlelight or early morning sun, is in the range of 2,700 to 3,000 Kelvin, while cool light, like an overcast sky or a fluorescent tube, is in the range of 4,000 to 6,500 Kelvin. Most people find warm light more relaxing and cool light more stimulating. Airport designers have to balance these needs. During the busy daytime hours, a slightly cooler, more energizing light helps passengers stay alert and navigate efficiently. But in the evenings, as the terminal quiets down, warmer, dimmer light creates a more comfortable and human atmosphere. Some modern airport terminals use tunable lighting systems, LED fixtures, whose color temperature and intensity can be adjusted remotely across the whole building by a central control system. These systems can mimic the natural progression of daylight, bright and cool in the morning, warm and slightly dimmer in the late afternoon, amber and gentle in the evening. The idea is that travelers who are crossing time zones, whose bodies are confused about what time of day it is, can be gently supported by the building's own light cycle, nudged toward wakefulness or toward rest. At Hamad International Airport. In Doha, Qatar, the lighting in the main corridor is a warm gold, consistent through the day and night, creating a sense of being in perpetual late afternoon. Appropriate, perhaps, for an airport that sits at a geographic crossroads, a place where time zones blur and the ordinary anchors of the day lose their force. At Kansai International Airport in Japan, a remarkable building that sits on an artificial island in Osaka Bay, designed by Renzo Piano and opened in 1994, the corridors are lit by natural light during the day through the building's famous glazed roof, and at night by a system of warm LED lights that pick out the steel ribs of the structure, the long curves of the ceiling, creating a space that feels simultaneously vast and intimate. The lights in the corridor you're walking through are dimmed, now, for the night. Warm, steady, unhurried. They will be like this for several more hours, until the building's systems detect the approach of dawn and begin very gradually to brighten. Almost imperceptibly, a change of a few Kelvin and a few percent of intensity every half hour, until by the time the first morning passengers arrive, the corridor is bright and ready and daytime again. But for now, it is gentle. For now, the lights are soft. In an empty airport corridor, there is never complete silence. But the sounds that remain when the passengers are gone are so gentle, so consistent, so unhurried, that they function almost as silence, a textured quiet rather than an absence of sound. The most pervasive sound in an empty airport corridor is the HVAC system. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, the collective term for the mechanical systems that manage the air quality and temperature of large buildings. In a major airport terminal, the HVAC system is enormous, many kilometers of ductwork running through the ceilings and walls and floors, hundreds of air handling units processing thousands of cubic meters of air per minute, pumps and fans and chillers and heaters all working together to maintain the interior environment at the target conditions. The sound it produces is a low, steady whoosh, not the aggressive blast of a window air conditioner, but something far more diffuse and gentle, the sound of air moving through large ducts and exiting through widely spaced ceiling diffusers, each one contributing a small whisper to the total. It is a sound that is easy to stop hearing. Your auditory system classifies it as background and filters it out. But when you listen for it, it is always there. A soft, continuous presence, the building breathing. Beneath that, if you listen carefully, there is the sound of the building itself. The tiny creaks and pops of a large structure experiencing temperature changes. Steel expands when it is warm and contracts when it is cool. During the day, when the building is full of body heat and the sun is shining on the roof, the steel structure is at its largest. At night, as the temperature drops, the steel cools and contracts minutely, and the connections between members, the bolted joints, the welded seams, give slightly and then settle. The result is a series of soft, irregular sounds like a ship at sea in calm weather, the gentle voice of a large structure at rest. There is also the sound of the moving walkways, even at night. Most airports keep their moving walkways running. Through the night, the energy cost of stopping and restarting them is greater than the cost of simply letting them run, and there are always some passengers, even at 3 a.m., who need them. The moving walkway makes a low, continuous hum. The motor at one end turning the drive shaft, the shaft turning the belt moving forward in its endless loop, the rubber cleats engaging and disengaging at the comb plates at each end. It is a sound of quiet, purposeful motion. The walkway is always ready. It moves for no one in particular and for everyone in general. And then, sometimes from far away, muffled by distance and walls, you might hear the sound of an aircraft. Not close, not loud, not the thundering takeoff roll of a departure, but something farther away and softer. A jet climbing out after midnight. A red-eye flight heading east, its engines a distant rumble that peaks and then fades over perhaps 15 or 20 seconds. And then the corridor is quiet again. Quieter than before. Let all those sounds settle around you now. The low whoosh of the ventilation, the occasional soft creak, the steady hum of the walkway up ahead, and then silence. Step onto the moving walkway. It is wide, perhaps 1.5 meters across, and it runs at 0.5 meters per second, the standard speed for airport moving walkways worldwide, a speed that was settled on through decades of research and experience as the optimal balance between useful speed up for passengers and safety for those who choose to stand rather than walk. The surface of the moving walkway is made of flat metal cleats, typically aluminum, fitted together in a continuous belt that is wide and very slightly flexible. The cleats are grooved, which provides grip for the feet and also allows the walkway's comb plates, the stationary teeth at each end that mesh with the grooves to create a smooth entry and exit, to work cleanly without catching. Underneath the cleat surface, the belt runs on rollers, and the whole assembly moves around two large drums at each end, driven by a motor in the machinery room beneath. Moving walkways were first demonstrated publicly at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago as a novelty for transporting visitors between pavilions. The technology was slow to find practical application. For decades, it remained an engineering curiosity. But when airports began to grow in the 1950s and 1960s, and when terminal concourses began to extend to lengths that made walking genuinely burdensome for passengers carrying luggage, the moving walkway found its place. The first permanent airport moving walkways were installed at Dallas Love Field Airport and O'Hare International Airport in Chicago in the mid-1950s. They were, by modern standards, simple machines. Slower, noisier, less smooth. But the principle they established has not changed in 70 years. A flat belt, moving at walking pace, carrying people from one end of a long corridor to the other with less effort. The physics are elementary. The benefit is real. Modern moving walkways at major airports are significantly more sophisticated. The ThyssenKrupp Airport Technology Company, one of the world's leading manufacturers of airport walkways and escalators, produces walkways with advanced vibration isolation systems that make the ride almost perfectly smooth. Their drives use variable frequency motor controllers that allow the walkway to accelerate and decelerate gently when switching on and off, rather than starting and stopping abruptly. The handrails move at exactly the same speed as the belt, coordinated by a shared drive so that passengers' hands and feet are always moving in unison. Some airports have experimented with high-speed moving walkways, systems that travel at 0.9 or even 1.2 meters per second faster than a comfortable walking pace. These require special technology because the transition from stationary floor to high-speed belt is hazardous at higher speeds. Passengers, particularly those with luggage or children, can be knocked off balance. The solution adopted in systems at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris and Pearson International Airport in Toronto uses an acceleration section at each end, where the belt gradually speeds up from stationary to full speed over a distance of several meters, giving passengers time to adjust. These high-speed walkways can reduce transit time through long corridors by 40% or more. You are standing on the walkway now, moving forward without effort, the corridor walls sliding gently past. The corridor ahead of you is long and straight, lit in its quiet nighttime amber. The handrail under your fingers is smooth and firm and moving at precisely your speed. The only sound is the low mechanical hum beneath you, steady and deep. You are going somewhere, or you are not. It doesn't matter. The walkway carries you either way. Step off the walkway and walk on down the corridor until you come to the first gate area. The gate areas are the rooms, or semi-rooms, since they are usually open to the main corridor, that cluster around each numbered gate, each jetway connection, each door that leads to an aircraft. During the day, these areas are full. Rows of seating facing the gate podium where the airline agents work, a departure monitor showing the flight number and destination and departure time, a screen showing a live view or flight information, and everywhere passengers, sitting, standing, pacing, scrolling through their phones, eating sandwiches from paper bags, sleeping across multiple seats with their jackets over their faces. At night, the gate areas are empty. The departure monitor still shows flight information. There may be a red-eye departure in a few hours or an early morning arrival, but the information hangs in the quiet air of an empty room addressed to no one. The rows of seats face forward toward the jetway door, patient and unoccupied. Airport seating is one of those topics that seems mundane, but reveals, upon examination, a rich history of competing priorities and design philosophies. The earliest airport waiting areas used comfortable upholstered chairs, genuinely comfortable, the kind you might find in a hotel lobby, because airports in the 1930s and 1940s were for a small, relatively affluent population of travelers who expected and received a certain level of service. As air travel democratized through the 1950s and 1960s, and as airports grew larger and the number of passengers increased dramatically, the design priorities shifted. One persistent critique of airport seating design, particularly in American airports, is the use of armrests between every seat, which prevents passengers from lying down across multiple seats to sleep. This design choice is sometimes attributed to deliberate policy, airlines and airports preferring passengers to spend money at shops and restaurants rather than sleeping, and sometimes attributed simply to the practical need to seat as many people as possible in finite space. The truth is probably a mixture of both. In Scandinavian and Asian airports, the seating is often more generous, with designated rest areas and longer padded benches specifically designed for lying down. At Changi Airport, there are dedicated sleeping areas with reclining chairs and gentle lighting offered to transit passengers who have long layovers. At Helsinki Airport in Finland, a series of sleeping pods, enclosed capsule beds rented by the hour, were among the first of their kind in the world. The Helsinki Airport sleeping pods are smooth white capsules, just large enough for one person to lie flat, with a small window and controlled interior lighting, a port of private stillness within the public flow of the terminal. But in the empty gate area you are passing through now, the ordinary chairs are simply ordinary chairs. Their fabric a serviceable grey or blue, their armrests cool to the touch. They face the windows. Look at the windows. The windows of a gate area are usually large, floor to ceiling, or nearly so, several meters wide, offering a full view of the airside, the apron, the taxiways, the parked aircraft, the ground service, vehicles, the runway lights in the distance. At night, the airfield is transformed. The ordinary industrial landscape of the daytime airport, the concrete, the jet blast scorches on the apron, the tangle of ground equipment, all of it is Softened or invisible in the dark, what remains is light. The amber and white of the apron floodlights, the blue of the taxiway edge lights, the green of the taxiway centerline lights, the red of the stop bars, the white of the runway edge lights, the brilliant white strobes of the runway threshold. And moving through all of this, slowly and with great deliberateness, the aircraft themselves, their red and green navigation lights, their white anti-collision strobes blinking every second, their landing lights casting beams across the wet concrete of the apron. The light pattern of an airport at night is entirely standardized worldwide. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, the United Nations agency that sets standards for global aviation, specifies the colors and patterns of all airfield lighting to ensure that a pilot landing at an airport they have never visited before, in a country whose language they do not speak, can understand the layout from the air using the same visual language they use at home. Blue lights mark the edges of taxiways. Green lights mark the center lines of taxiways. Red lights mark stop bars, places where an aircraft must stop and wait for clearance before crossing a runway. White lights mark runway edges. The approach lighting system, the array of lights that extends ahead of the runway threshold to help pilots align in poor visibility, is a specific pattern that has been refined over decades of operational experience into something that is both highly effective and, from above, rather beautiful. A long line of white lights converging toward the threshold, flanked by bars of light at regular intervals, the whole system like an illuminated arrow pointing at the landing zone. From the gate window, you can see a slice of this world. A parked wide-body aircraft is at the gate next door, its cabin lights off, its navigation lights still blinking. Aircraft navigation lights, unlike runway lights, run continuously while the aircraft has electrical power, a safety measure that ensures they can always be seen, even on the ground. The aircraft sits massive and still, its aluminum skin catching the floodlights in long, curved reflections, its engines dark and cold, its stairs not yet attached for the morning's departure. Beyond it, a taxiway curves away toward the runway complex, its blue edge lights describing the curve in the dark. Far away, barely visible, the approach lights for the main runway send their long, ordered signal into the night sky, addressing aircraft that are not yet there. Stand at the window and watch. There is a tug, a low, powerful ground vehicle, making its unhurried way across the apron, its yellow warning lights rotating, its navigation lights blinking. It moves slowly, purposefully, in no particular hurry. It disappears behind a terminal building. The apron is empty again. The lights continue to mark the invisible paths of the airfield, patient and specific and unwatched. Walk on down the corridor. Let it carry you through an architectural history of airport design. The earliest airport terminal buildings, built in the 1920s and 1930s, when commercial aviation was new and airports were small and passengers were few, were modest structures. Often they resembled train stations, the only reference point that designers had for public transit buildings of any scale. They had waiting rooms with upholstered chairs, ticketing counters with wooden surrounds, departures boards with flip, tiles that clattered mechanically through the letters and numbers. The corridors were short and the ceilings were low, and the buildings were scaled for a world in which air travel was still remarkable. By the late 1950s, the jet age had arrived and airports had to grow rapidly to accommodate the new, larger, faster aircraft, the Boeing 707, the Douglas DC-8, the Convair 880, and the dramatically increased passenger numbers that jet travel brought. The architecture of airports in this period became bold and optimistic, expressive of the excitement of the age. Eero Saarinen designed the TWA Flight Center at Idlewild Airport in New York, now John F. Kennedy International Airport, with a sweeping concrete form that seemed to be in flight itself, its roof curves suggesting wings or perhaps the hood of a hawk. He designed Dulles International Airport outside Washington with its famous hyperbolic paraboloid roof, a concrete surface that is simultaneously concave and convex, depending on where you stand, supported on those distinctive concrete columns that lean outward like sentinels. These were not merely functional buildings. They were statements. They said, "This is an era of possibility. We are learning to travel through the sky, and the buildings we build for this purpose will be worthy of the ambition. The 1960s and 70s brought a more pragmatic approach. Airports grew so fast and needed to expand so often that the architectural emphasis shifted from expression to flexibility. The long, repetitive pier concourse, a straight corridor with gates along both sides, became the dominant form because it was expandable. You could always make it longer, always add more gates at the end without disturbing what was already there. These concourses were not beautiful, they were useful. Their corridors were long and their ceilings were moderate and their walls were generic and their terrazzo floors stretched for what seemed like miles, but they worked. They processed millions of passengers, and in their very genericness, their very interchangeability, they created a kind of global vernacular, a type of space that travelers recognized anywhere in the world, that said immediately, you are in an airport, you are airside, your gate is down this corridor, you know what to do. There is comfort in that, in the universal grammar of the airport corridor. The 1980s and 1990s brought a renewed investment in airport architecture. Prosperity, deregulation, and rapidly growing passenger numbers created the conditions for major new terminal buildings, and architects responded with ambition. The new terminals of this era, Kansai International in Japan, Stansted in England, Denver in the United States, Chek Lap Kok in Hong Kong, were conceived not just as infrastructure, but as experiences, as the buildings that would be the first and last impression of a city or a country for millions of international visitors. The corridor at Chek Lap Kok, now Hong Kong International Airport, designed by Norman Foster and opened in 1998, is perhaps the most celebrated airport corridor in the world. The main Y-shaped concourse building is 1.2 kilometers long, and its corridor is a masterpiece of spatial clarity. A high roof of white structural steel diffused natural light from above, a clear central spine with gates on both sides, the whole. Composition so perfectly proportioned and so expertly lit that it does not feel long or overwhelming despite its scale. Walking its length at night, with the lights dimmed and the concourse empty, is like walking through a very large and very beautiful drawing of an airport, the ideal of the thing made real. Let that image rest behind your closed eyes. A very long, very quiet, very beautiful corridor. White and high and still. You are not entirely alone in the corridor. At the far end, perhaps 200 meters away, there is a cleaning cart. It is large and purposeful, a yellow or green industrial cart loaded with supplies, mop, bucket, bottles of cleaning solution, rolls of paper towel, a vacuum for the carpet areas, pushed by a person in a high-visibility vest who is working. Methodically down the corridor, cleaning the surfaces that 1,000 people walked over during the day, preparing them for the 1,000 people who will walk over them tomorrow. Airport cleaning is an enormous undertaking. A major hub airport handles tens of millions of passengers per year, and each of those passengers leaves traces. Fingerprints on glass, footprints on floors, food wrappers in bins, spills on tables, waste in restrooms. The cleaning operation that maintains an airport at the standard that passengers expect runs around the clock, with the heaviest work concentrated in the hours between the last flights of the night and the first flights of the morning, when the concourses are empty and the cleaners can work without threading through crowds. At Heathrow Airport in London, the nighttime cleaning operation involves hundreds of workers across 5 terminals, working in coordinated teams. Floors are mopped with industrial scrubber dryer machines. Vehicles, rather than implements, wide enough to cover the full width of a corridor in a single pass, driven by an operator seated at the rear. These machines scrub the floor with rotating brushes, apply cleaning solution, and vacuum up the dirty water in a single continuous operation, leaving the terrazzo surface clean and slightly damp behind them, drying quickly in the ventilated air. The cleaning teams have their own hierarchy and their own professional culture. There are floor supervisors who check the quality of the work, standards inspectors who assess the terminal against a cleaning specification that defines the acceptable level of soil on every surface type. There are specialized technicians who clean the escalator treads, a job that requires specific equipment, a comb-like tool that removes the accumulated grime from the corrugations, and others who clean the windows, working from elevated platforms to reach the high glass panels of the departure halls. The people doing this work are often invisible to airport users. They work at times when the airport is quiet, when there are few passengers to witness the labor that maintains the terminal's cleanliness. But their work is essential and their skill is real. Maintaining a building of this size and this traffic level at a standard that feels effortless to users requires genuine expertise and sustained effort. The cleaning cart ahead of you has turned into a gate area. The corridor is empty again. The floor behind it is clean, slightly damp, catching the nighttime lights in long reflections. Look at the signs. The signs in an airport corridor are one of the most carefully designed elements of the entire building. They are, in a sense, the most important single design decision in the terminal. More important than the architecture, more important than the floor, more important than the art on the walls. Because if the signs are wrong, or unclear, or poorly placed, passengers get lost, miss their flights, arrive at the wrong gate, cause delays. The consequences of bad wayfinding in an airport ripple outward, affecting flight schedules, crew rostering, baggage handling, the whole interconnected system. Good airport signage is almost invisible. Travelers follow it without noticing they are doing so. The information they need appears at exactly the moment they need it, in exactly the right place, in exactly the right format. They turn left or right, or keep walking, and they arrive, and they never think about why the journey felt so effortless. The most widely used typeface in airport signage worldwide is Helvetica, or variations closely related to it. Helvetica was designed by Swiss typographers Max Miedinger and Edward Hoffmann in 1957, and its clean, neutral, highly legible letterforms made it ideal for signage applications where the goal is maximum clarity at minimum cognitive effort. It became the standard for Swiss transport systems in the 1960s, was adopted for New York's subway system in 1970, and spread gradually into airports worldwide. Today, a majority of the world's major airports use Helvetica or a Helvetica derivative for their primary signage. Some airports have developed their own proprietary typefaces, designed specifically for their wayfinding system. Heathrow Airport uses a custom face called Heathrow Sans, developed in the early 2000s as part of a comprehensive wayfinding redesign. It is based on the principles of Helvetica: clean, neutral, legible, but with details refined for the specific conditions of Heathrow's terminal environments. The lighting levels, the viewing distances, the sign sizes used at each location. The color coding in airport signage is also standardized, at least within regions. In most European and Asian airports, yellow signs on a dark background are used for wayfinding, gate numbers, terminal connections, baggage claim, because yellow on dark provides the highest contrast in a wide range of lighting conditions, including the artificial lighting of a sealed terminal at night. In American airports, signs are more commonly black on white or white on dark blue, following a different convention that has its own history and its own readability arguments. The signs in the corridor around you are clear and quiet. They tell you where the gates are, where the exits are, where the restrooms are. They are not demanding your attention. They are simply there, available if you need them. You don't need them right now. You are just walking. There is a sense in which an airport concourse is a complete world. It has everything needed for a reasonably comfortable period of human habitation: food, water, shelter from the weather, lighting, temperature control, seating, restrooms, entertainment, retail, and, in the larger, more ambitious airports, gardens, art, showers, medical, facilities, chapels, yoga rooms, and sleeping pods. Some international transit passengers who arrive from one long-haul flight and wait for another can spend 8 or 10 or 12 hours in an airport concourse without any access to the city outside. This is not always by choice. Transit passengers without the right visa for the country they are transiting through are legally confined to the airside of the terminal, unable to pass through immigration into the city, but it is often chosen freely because the connection time is short, or the city is far, or the traveler is tired, and the airport is comfortable enough. Changi Airport in Singapore has built an entire philosophy around the extended transit experience. The jewel Its vast nature-themed complex connecting all 4 terminals opened in 2019 as a destination in its own right. A place that people visit not because they are flying, but because it is extraordinary. It has the HSBC Rain Vortex, the world's tallest indoor waterfall, 40 meters of falling water in a column of mist and light at the center of the glass dome. It has the Canopy Park, an indoor garden and play area on the 5th floor. It has 280 shops and restaurants. It was designed by the Israeli-Canadian architect Moshe Safdie, whose other works include Habitat 67 in Montreal and the Marina Bay Sands complex in Singapore itself, and it is a genuinely remarkable building. But even the most ordinary airport concourse, the long, repetitive pier with its rows of gates, and its moving walkways and its clusters of seating, has a self-contained quality. Walking through it at night, when the retail is closed and the cafes are shuttered and the only people are the cleaners and the night staff, you can feel the structure of the world it contains, the skeleton beneath the day's busy surface. The corridor at night is the airport, as it really is. The bones and the systems and the spaces before the crowds fill them. Let your feet carry you now through the corridors of airports on every continent. Each one a different answer to the same question, each one a different corridor to walk down in the quiet of the night. Sydney, Australia. Sydney Kingsford Smith International Airport. The international terminal here, Terminal 1, has a departure hall that incorporates references to the Australian landscape in its material palette. Warm eucalyptus tones in the timber panels, the reddish-brown of ochre in the carpet, the pale blue of a summer sky in the glass. The corridor that leads to the international gates curves gently along the waterfront. The airport is built on the shores of Botany Bay, the site of Captain Cook's first landing in Australia in 1770. And at night, through the windows, the lights of the harbour are visible. The red and green of navigation buoys, the white of distant vessels, the amber of the city beyond. São Paulo, Brazil. Guarulhos International Airport. The Terminal 3 building, opened. In 2009, is one of the largest terminal buildings in South America, with a capacity of 12 million passengers per year. Its main concourse corridor is wide and high-ceilinged, with a structural system of white-painted steel that arches overhead. At night, the corridor is lit by warm lights, and the shops are shuttered, and the Brazilian passengers who are awake. At this hour, and there are always some, Brazil runs late, sit in the gate areas with the particular relaxed patience of a culture that is more comfortable with time than many. Cairo, Egypt. Cairo International Airport. Terminal 2, which handles the majority of international flights, is an older building, opened in the 1980s and extended since, with a character that feels different from the gleaming new airports of the Gulf or East Asia. The corridors are lower, and the materials are more subdued. And the art on the walls includes Egyptian motifs, hieroglyphic-inspired patterns, geometric arrangements that echo Islamic geometric art. And there is a quality to the nighttime empty corridor that is more intimate, more human-scaled than the vast halls of the mega airports. The ventilation hums, a single departure monitor glows at the far end of a gate area. The night is warm outside, Cairo is warm almost always, and the interior temperature is maintained against the heat by a systems that works hard and continuously. Nairobi, Kenya. Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, the main terminal building, underwent significant reconstruction in recent years after a fire in 2013 damaged the departures hall. The rebuilt terminal has a wide, high corridor that serves the main international gates, and its materiality references the Kenyan landscape. Warm stone, timber panels, the terracotta color of the red dust soil of the East African highlands. At night, the corridor is quiet in a different way from European or Asian airports. The silence is warmer, more weighted. The air outside the sealed building carrying the scent of the savannah in a way that the interior climate control cannot entirely exclude. Buenos Aires, Argentina. Ministro Pistarini International Airport, Ezeiza, one of the great airports of South America, serving the beautiful and complicated city of Buenos Aires. The main international terminal has a central concourse with a high glazed roof that floods the space with light during the day. At night, the glazing is dark and reflective, the lights of the concourse doubling in the glass above, so that the empty corridor seems to extend upward into a reflected space above it. A ghost corridor, identical and inverted, floating above. The real one. Amsterdam, Netherlands. Amsterdam Airport, Schiphol. One of the most consistently well-designed airports in the world. Schiphol has a single passenger terminal building, unusual for an airport of its size, which means that all the connecting corridors between piers, all the wayfinding, all the shared facilities are within a single coherent structure. The airport was rebuilt after World War II on a site that was, before it was drained, the bottom of a lake. The name Schiphol is thought to derive from the Dutch words for ship's grave, reflecting the shallow lake that once existed here, and was treacherous for navigation. The airport sits several meters below sea level, protected by the sophisticated Dutch water management infrastructure. The corridors at Schiphol are clean and logical and somehow very Dutch, practical and refined without unnecessary ornament, but warm in their way with good materials and good light. The nighttime corridor at Schiphol has a particular quality of quietness, perhaps because the building is so well insulated, so well sealed against the flat, damp, sea-level Dutch night outside. Toronto, Canada. Toronto Pearson International Airport, the largest airport in Canada and one of the busiest in North America. Terminal 1, the newer of the two terminals, was designed by the Spanish architect Luis Vidal and opened in 2004. Its departure concourse is an extraordinary space, a long, high hall with an undulating wooden ceiling, the warm grain of the wood, creating a softness that is unusual in airport architecture, which more commonly reaches for glass and steel. The wood panels, made from sustainable sources as specified in the design brief, bring a Canadian warmth to a building that could otherwise feel internationally generic. At night, the wooden ceiling of the Terminal 1 concourse absorbs the light rather than reflecting it, creating a coziness that is unexpected in so large a space. The corridor feels, at night, almost domestic. Not like someone's house, but like the shared corridor of a very good, very large, very clean hotel. The kind where you feel safe and looked after. Let that feeling settle over you. Safe. Looked after. At the end of the concourse corridor, there is often a change of level. The terminal is not flat. Airports have multiple levels, typically separating departing passengers who need to go up to the elevated departures hall from arriving passengers who come down to the baggage claim and ground transportation. Levels. And connecting these levels are escalators. Airport escalators are among the most heavily used escalators in the world. A single escalator at a major hub airport may carry 3 million or more passengers per year. The engineering requirements are correspondingly demanding. The machines must be extremely reliable, must operate with minimal vibration and noise, and must be maintainable quickly and in short windows between peak traffic periods. The Otis Elevator. Company and the Schindler Group are the two largest manufacturers of airport escalators globally, though Kohn, Thyssen, and Mitsubishi Electric are also significant players. A modern airport escalator has a design life of 20 to 25 years, after which it is typically refurbished or replaced. The total annual operating hours can exceed 7,000, meaning the machine runs almost continuously with only the scheduled maintenance, windows as downtime. The sound of an empty airport escalator. The rhythmic, slightly mechanical sound of the steps emerging from below and disappearing above, the hum of the motor and the gear system, the faint clatter of the step chains, is one of the characteristic sounds of the late-night airport. It is familiar and comforting in its way, a sound of machinery doing its job, patient and regular, indifferent to whether anyone is riding. At night, with no passengers on the steps, you can stand at the bottom of an airport escalator and watch. The steps emerge from the lower comb plate and ascend in their smooth, regular progression, one after another, step after step, carrying no one but continuing anyway. Because the system is on and the motor is running and the steps go up whether they carry a load or not. There is a philosophical quality to that. The escalator ascending in an empty airport at 3 a.m., carrying no one, doing its work in the absence of witness. It is not sad. It is simply present, doing what it does. Step onto the escalator. Feel the slight vibration through the soles of your feet. The handrail under your palm moves upward at exactly the pace of the steps. You ascend. The upper level of the terminal has a different character. Here, there are often higher ceilings, The roof of the terminal is directly above, and wider views. The large windows that form the facades of the departure hall look out not onto the apron, but across the airfield. A wider view, a longer perspective, the full geometry of the runways visible in the dark. And the corridor up here is wider too, the space more generous, because this is where the main flow of passengers moves through the building, from check-in to security to departures. The departure hall in an empty airport at night is one of the most haunting and beautiful spaces in modern architecture. During the day, it is a scene of controlled chaos. Thousands of passengers checking in at hundreds of desks, luggage moving on miles of conveyor belts, security queues stretching back through stanchion barriers, departure boards updating constantly, announcements over the PA, the whole complex machinery of managing human movement at scale operating at full intensity. At night, it is an empty cathedral. The check-in desks are closed, their screens dark, their baggage belts still. The security lanes are roped. Off, the scanning machines dormant. The baggage carousels in arrivals on the floor below are motionless. The PA is silent. The departure boards, those vast arrays of screens, or in older airports, flip-tile mechanical boards, show only the handful of overnight flights, their information hanging in the silence, and the space itself, the height, the width, the long planes of glass and the long planes of ceiling, the floor stretching to the walls, all of it empty and present and quiet. In some of these spaces, the architecture becomes fully visible only at night, when the crowd is gone. The structural system, the way the roof is carried, the relationship between the columns and the beams, the geometry of the space, which is invisible during the day, hidden by people and activity and noise, reveals itself in the empty building. The columns stand alone, the beams carry their loads in silence. The roof rests above, patient and permanent. Saarinen's roof at Dulles, Foster's domes at Stansted, Piano's arching structure at Kansai, the sweeping curves of Calatravia's terminal at Bilbao. Each of them most fully themselves at night, when there is no one to look at except the building. Walk past the restrooms. They are there, in their cluster, signed in white on blue or white on green, the universal icons clear even in the dim nighttime light, and think for a moment about them. Because the restrooms of an airport are a surprisingly significant element of the whole. The quantity of restroom facilities required in an airport terminal is calculated from the passenger throughput. The industry standard, as specified by the IMY Airports Council International, is approximately 1 toilet per 50 passengers in the peak hour. For an airport handling 80 million passengers a year, this translates to an extraordinary number of fixtures. Thousands of toilets, hundreds of wash basins, miles of plumbing. The restrooms at major airports are cleaned on a schedule that would be considered excessive in any other context. At busy airports like Changi, Incheon and Singapore, restrooms are checked and cleaned every 20 to 30 minutes during peak hours. Changi Airport employs a real-time feedback system at the exit of each restroom. A panel of 4 buttons, from a happy face to a very unhappy face, and passengers are invited to press one as they leave. The data is monitored in real time, and if the score drops below a threshold, a cleaning crew is dispatched immediately. This attention to the restrooms is not trivial. Studies of passenger satisfaction consistently show that the cleanliness of restrooms is one of the top predictors of overall airport satisfaction ratings. Travelers who encounter a clean, well-maintained restroom at an airport feel reassured about the airport, about the airline, about the journey they are undertaking. The humble restroom is a signal of care, and its quality speaks quietly and clearly about the whole. At night, the restrooms are cleaned thoroughly, floors mopped, surfaces wiped, fixtures sanitized, and then left to their quiet waiting. The fluorescent lights inside, often brighter than the corridor lights, cast their white glow onto the empty cubicles, the clean basins, the full soap dispensers. Everything is ready. Nobody comes. The airport at night is not empty of people. It is nearly empty. The passengers are sparse, the crowds are gone, but there is a skeleton crew that never leaves. The air traffic control tower, visible through the departure hall windows, is staffed and active. Even when there are only 1 or 2 movements per hour, a late departure, an early arrival, the controllers are there, monitoring the frequency, managing the airfield. The control tower at a major airport is staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, without exception. The people inside it work shifts through the night, their radar screens glowing green in the darkness of the operations room, watching the echoes of aircraft that are sometimes very far away, sometimes just rolling, toward the runway. The security staff are there. The airside security of a modern airport is never unattended. The screeners are in place even when the queues are short, because the rules do not allow for a period when the security boundary is unguarded. At night, with only a trickle of passengers, the security staff have a different kind of work. The maintenance of alertness in a quiet environment, the vigilance that is harder to sustain when there is nothing apparently threatening to be vigilant about. The Operations Control Center is staffed. In the basement or the back office of the terminal, a team of operations controllers monitors every system in the airport simultaneously. The flight information displays, the gate allocation system, the baggage system, the apron management system, the passenger processing queues, the building management system that controls the HVAC and the lighting and the escalators. They see the airport as a whole, a series of systems in interaction, and they manage the interactions so that the whole continues to function smoothly. The ground handling teams are on the apron, preparing for the night's final arrivals and the morning's early departures. They wear high-visibility vests and ear protection. Even at night, aircraft engines are loud. And they move with the practiced efficiency of people who have done this work in all weathers at all hours for years. And the nighttime check-in. Agents at airports with early morning departures. Check-in desks open as early as 3 or 4 a.m., meaning the staff who run them arrive in the small hours, their uniforms precise, their smiles genuine even at an hour when most of the city is asleep. They open the airport for the day. They are its morning face. Walk past the check-in hall now. The desks are quiet, dark. The overnight shift will come in a few hours. For now, the hall is still, and the empty desks stretch away in long rows, their screens dark, their scales silent, their label printers waiting. Even in the quiet of the night, much of the airport is moving. Underground, or in the depths of the building, the baggage handling system continues to operate. This is one of the most complex mechanical systems in any building. A network of conveyor belts, sorting machines, tilt tray sorters, security scanners, and transfer systems that can sort tens of thousands of bags per hour, routing each bag from its check-in point to the correct departure gate with a precision that rivals the most sophisticated logistics operations anywhere. The baggage system at Munich Airport in Germany, for instance, handles over 100,000 bags per day when operating. At full capacity, the system has 65 kilometers of conveyor belts running through the depths of the terminal buildings and a sorting rate that can process a bag every few seconds. Each bag is tracked individually using barcode scanners at multiple points in the system, and the control software knows the location of every bag at every moment. If a bag misses its connection, the system flags it immediately and routes it to a recovery area where it can be manually processed. At night, the baggage system handles a much smaller volume. The red-eye flights that are still operating. The early morning departures whose bags are already being loaded. The conveyors that are not needed run slowly on standby, their belts moving at reduced speed, maintaining the system's readiness without wasting energy. The sorting machines tick quietly through their cycles. The overhead lights in the baggage hall, a functional utilitarian space that passengers never see, cast their industrial glow on the empty belts. The fuel system is also operating. Underground, from a large storage facility at the airport periphery, aviation fuel, kerosene essentially with specific additives for aircraft use, is pumped through a network of underground pipes to hydrant connections beneath every gate, apron. When an aircraft arrives and needs to be refueled, a ground crew connects a hose from the pit valve in the apron to the aircraft's fuel panels, and the fuel flows automatically from the underground network, metered precisely to the amount required. This hydrant refueling system is a significant engineering installation. The underground pipework at a large airport can extend for many kilometers, but it is invisible to passengers who never see the fuel arriving, only the aircraft that carries it. The apron lighting is on. Throughout the night, the entire airfield is illuminated. The apron floodlights that allow ground crews to work safely, the taxiway and runway lights that allow aircraft to move, the obstacle lights on, tall structures like the control tower and the hangars that warn approaching aircraft of their presence. This lighting runs on a dedicated electrical circuit, separate from the terminal power supply, with backup generators that can sustain it for many hours in the event of a grid failure. All of this is moving, quietly, beneath the surface of the empty corridor you are walking through. The building is alive. It breathes. It circulates. Its systems hum and pump and convey and cool and heat and light. And the passengers who will arrive in a few hours' time will experience none of this as machinery, but as comfort. The comfortable airport, the effortlessly functional space that asks nothing of them except that they find their gate. The quality of the quiet is changing. Something is shifting, almost imperceptibly, in the atmosphere of the corridor. The lights have not brightened, not yet, but the building's systems are beginning their gradual transition toward the day. The HVAC has increased its output slightly, anticipating the heat load of the first morning passengers. The departure monitors are updating more frequently, the day's early flights beginning to populate the screens with their flight numbers and gate assignments and departure times. In the check-in hall, the first agents are arriving. They come through the staff corridors, the back routes that run parallel to the public corridors, and give the airport's employees access to their workstations without passing through passenger areas. These back corridors are plainer than the public ones. Grey cinder block and fluorescent light, no terrazzo, no art. But they serve the same architectural function, connecting points in a large building, allowing movement, enabling the building to do what it does. The agents open their workstations, boot up their computers, run through their pre-shift checklists. They check the day's flight manifest, the passenger loads, the special service requests, passengers who need wheelchair assistance, unaccompanied minors who need to be escorted through the airport, connecting passengers whose inbound flights are running late and who need to be managed carefully through the terminal. On the airside, the ground crews are preparing for the first departures. Aircraft that were parked overnight at remote stands, the distant gates that are used when the closer ones are full, are being towed to their departure positions. The tow tractors, low-slung, powerful, designed for the specific task of pushing or pulling multi-hundred-ton aircraft on the ground, move through the pre-dawn apron with their amber lights rotating, their exhausts briefly visible in the cold air. The sky outside, visible through the gate windows, through the high glazing of the departure hall, is beginning to change. It is not yet light, but it is less dark. The blue-black of deep night is lightening, almost invisibly, toward the deep navy of pre-dawn. The stars that were visible through the clear upper sections of the terminal glazing are fading one by one, and in the corridor, you are still walking. Let us pass, in this corridor, through a brief history of the corridors that preceded it. The first truly long airport corridors were built in the 1950s and 1960s as airports expanded to handle the new jet aircraft. Idlewild Airport in New York opened as a full international hub in 1948 and renamed John F. Kennedy International Airport in 1963, was one of the first airports to feature the elongated concourse pier, a form that was adopted by major airports worldwide over the following decades. The concourse pier, a long, narrow building attached perpendicular to the main terminal, with gates along both sides, was an engineering and operational solution to a specific problem. How to fit the maximum number of aircraft nose-in to a terminal building while keeping the walking distance for passengers reasonable. The pier form allows aircraft to park on both sides, maximizing the number of gates per unit of building perimeter. It was efficient and scalable, and it became the dominant airport concourse form for 3 decades. The length of these corridors increased steadily as airports and aircraft grew larger. By the 1970s, concourse corridors of 400, 500, even 600 meters were common at major hubs. The moving walkway was introduced partly in response to this growth, a technological solution to the problem of asking passengers already tired from flying to walk the equivalent of a city block or more. To reach their gate, as corridors grew, their design evolved. The earliest examples were purely functional: a column grid, a suspended ceiling, fluorescent lighting, linoleum or carpet floors. But by the 1970s and 1980s, airport operators and their architects were thinking about the quality of the experience. In these corridors, the dwell time, the retail opportunities, the aesthetic character, and the concourse corridor began to acquire the design attention it now receives. The introduction of retail into airport corridors was a gradual process. The earliest airports had few shops, a newsstand, a gift shop, a restaurant, because the assumption was that passengers would spend their time in transit, not in shopping. But as demographic analysis showed that passengers who were waiting in airports were a captive audience with significant discretionary income, the retail offer expanded dramatically. By the 1990s, major airport corridors had become, in effect, shopping malls with gates attached, and the revenue from retail and food and beverage concessions had become a significant part of airport operators' income. The design of these retail corridors required new skills, the skills of shopping center planning combined with the skills of airport operations. The sightlines needed to balance the need to see gates and departure boards with the desire to create engaging retail environments. The materials needed to be durable enough for the traffic, but attractive enough to create a pleasant shopping environment. The lighting needed to serve both wayfinding and retail display. The most sophisticated modern airport corridors are extraordinary exercises in the integration of these competing demands. Walking through the main shopping concourse at Dubai International Airport, or through the retail zone of Singapore Changi's Terminal 3, or through the Knightsbridge-like luxury corridor of Heathrow's Terminal 5, is an experience that combines the functional clarity of a well-designed transit space with the sensory richness of a high-end retail environment. The art is in making these two things coexist without either undermining the other. At night, when the shops are closed and the lights are dimmed and the corridor is empty, this art is visible in its pure form. The structure is there. The proportions are there. The relationship between floor and ceiling and wall, the rhythm of the columns, the quality of the materials, all visible, all present, all quiet. The acoustic character of a corridor is determined by its proportions and its surfaces, and it changes dramatically between day and night. During the day, a busy airport corridor is acoustically rich and complex. The sounds of thousands of conversations, of wheeled luggage on hard floors, of PA announcements, of music from shops, of children running, of mobile phone calls, all of these overlap and interfere, creating a dense sonic texture that the brain processes as background noise. The reverberation of the hard surfaces, the terrazzo floor, the glass walls, the high ceilings, extends individual sounds, blending them together in a wash that is loud, but not particularly intelligible. Acoustic designers call this noise floor, the baseline level of sound below which individual sounds cannot be distinguished. In a busy airport corridor, the noise floor is high, perhaps 65 to 75 decibels, similar to the interior of a busy restaurant. In this environment, the PA announcements are calibrated to be clearly audible above the noise floor. They are loud, they are clear, they use a specific microphone technique and equalization that gives the voice a particular clarity in high noise environments. At night, with the passengers gone, the noise floor drops dramatically. Suddenly, the corridor is quiet enough that you can hear the HVAC from 50 meters away. You can hear your own footsteps with startling clarity. The slight squeak of a shoe sole on terrazzo, the soft crush of a heel on carpet. You can hear the moving walkway from 3 gate areas away, and the PA, if it sounds for an arriving red-eye for a gate change, is suddenly very loud, very clear, filling the empty corridor with a voice that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. The acoustic quality of an empty airport corridor is one of its most distinctive characteristics. There is a particular kind of echo that large, high-ceilinged spaces produce. Not the sharp, quick echo of a small, tiled bathroom, but a long, diffuse reverberation. A gradual blending of sounds that makes a hand clap sound like a gentle roll, of thunder that makes a footstep sound like 2 footsteps, then 3, then fade. This reverberation is not unpleasant. It is the sound of space, of volume, of air that has room to move. Let the space sound around you. The soft hum of the ventilation. The distant moving walkway, your own steps clear and unhurried. the faint creak of the building settling into the night's cooler temperature. And silence. You have been walking for a long time now. Through the terrazzo and the carpet, past the shuttered shops and the empty gate areas, along the moving walkways, and up the escalators, through the departure halls and the long piers, through airports on every continent, in every climate, built in every decade from the 1940s to the 2020s. You have heard the HVAC and the escalator hum and the distant aircraft, and the faint creak of steel cooling in the night. You have seen the apron through the gate windows and the taxiway lights, and the stars through the high glazing. You have smelled, faintly, the citrus of cleaning solution and the particular neutral air of the climate control system, and once, very faintly, through a door left ajar, the jet fuel smell of the apron, sharp and specific and unlike anything else. You are walking more slowly now. The corridor ahead is long and straight and gently lit. The floor is smooth and clean and cool-colored in the nighttime light. The ceiling is high and quiet above you. The shops on either side are closed, their shutters reflecting your shape as you pass. A soft and blurred figure in brushed aluminum, moving slowly, unhurried. There is a gate area ahead, at the far end of the corridor. Its departure monitor shows a flight, early morning, a few hours away, and the destination is somewhere far away, somewhere warm, or cold, or ancient, or entirely unfamiliar. It doesn't matter. You are not going there. You are just walking. The moving walkway begins here. Step onto it. Feel the surface take your weight. Feel the handrail move under your palm. Feel the gentle forward motion of the walkway carrying you, adding its speed to yours, reducing the effort of the journey to almost nothing. You don't need to walk now. You can just stand and let the walkway carry you. Let the corridor slide past. Tuck, shutters, the columns, the lit signs above the gates, the high ceiling receding. The curve ahead, gentle and gradual, the far end of the corridor not yet visible, the walkway moving you forward with its steady mechanical patience. There is nowhere you need to be. There is no flight to catch. There is only this corridor, long and quiet and perfectly lit for the night, carrying you forward at 0.5 meters per second toward a destination that is wherever sleep takes you. Let the sounds be there around you. The low hum of the walkway, the distant sigh of the ventilation, the soft click, very far away, of an escalator doing its work in an empty part of the terminal, the building breathing, your own breathing, slow, easy, undemanding, in and out. The corridor is endless now, or nearly endless, because you are between waking and sleep, and in that space, distances lose their meaning. You could walk this corridor for hours, or you could walk it for 30 seconds, and either way, the experience would be the same. The smooth floor, the warm light, the clean air, the forward movement, some of the world's great airport corridors, are detailed here for your dreaming mind to walk through. The connector tunnel at Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta, that underground passage between the domestic terminal and the concourses, has art on its walls. A kinetic light sculpture runs the length of the ceiling, a long, slowly shifting pattern of colored light that accompanies the moving walkways. Hundreds of small LED elements cycling through color shifts over periods of minutes, so that the walk through the tunnel is always in motion, always changing, never the same twice. The connector at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport between Terminals D and E runs underground in a tunnel whose walls are decorated with a series of neon art installations. Tubes of neon light in abstract forms, glowing in colors that shift from warm to cool as you move through the tunnel. At night, with the walkways moving and almost no passengers, the neon casts its soft light on the empty floor, and the tunnel feels like something from a science fiction film, clean and futuristic and oddly peaceful. The air train connector at San Francisco International Airport runs elevated, and from it, at night, you can see both the airfield and the surrounding bay area. The lights of San Mateo and Millbrae across the bay, the aircraft in holding patterns descending in slow spirals. Toward the runway, the car headlights on the highway below moving in their steady streams. The underground people mover tunnels at many airports have a particular corridor quality, sealed, private, moving, lit from within. The tunnel at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, connecting the main terminal with Concourse E, is decorated with murals depicting North Carolina's natural world, the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Outer Banks, the Piedmont forests, and the light within it is warm and the movement is smooth, and the sense of traveling between two worlds, above ground and below, is very gentle. Let all these corridors merge into the single corridor you are walking now, the composite corridor of all airports, the ideal corridor that contains them all. Long, quiet, warm, clean, moving forward. Always forward. It is very late now, or very early. The corridor is at its quietest. The last red-eye departure has pushed back from its gate and taxied away, its engines a distant crescendo and then silence. The gate agent who processed its final passengers has closed her computer, tidied her station, and gone to the staff break room for a cup of coffee before the morning rush begins. The cleaning cart has made its final pass and retreated to its storage area. The escalators are running. The ventilation is running. The moving walkway is running. The departure monitors are showing the first flights of the morning, still hours away, their information patient and precise. The terrazzo floor is clean and reflective and still. The ceiling is high and quiet. The lights are warm and dim, and you are still on the walkway, moving forward, the handrails smooth under your hand, the corridor sliding past on either side. There is a technical term in airport planning called level of service. It is a measure of the quality of the passenger experience at various points in the airport: the check-in queue, the security screening, the gate hold room, the baggage. Claim. The Airport Council International defines level of service in terms of space per passenger, dwell time, processing time, and several other factors, on a scale from A, optimal, to F, unacceptable. Level of service A is defined as the condition, where passengers have sufficient space to move freely, to choose their own pace, to stop and look at a departure board without impeding others, to sit in any seat they choose in the gate hold room, to stand at the window and look at the airfield without feeling pressed. It is the airport as it is, intended to be experienced, the airport at its best. At night, an airport corridor is always level of service A. There is space everywhere. There is no queue, no crowd, no press of people. There is just the corridor, and you in it, and the space. Available to you in every direction. You can walk slowly or quickly. You can stop and look at the departure monitor. You can sit in any seat in the gate area. You can stand at the window as long as you like, watching the taxiway lights and the distant runway and the sky. The airport at night is entirely yours. Take it. Walk its corridors slowly, without hurry. Notice the floor and the ceiling and the walls and the light. Hear the systems running around you. Feel the clean air on your face. This is the corridor at its best, the building as it was designed to be, the space as it would be if space were ever fully sufficient. It is here, it is now, and it will be here when you wake. Some version of it, in some airport somewhere, with its terrazzo floor and its high ceiling and its warm nighttime light, and its patient running systems. Waiting, ready, exactly as you left it. The walkway is still moving. Your eyes are closed, or nearly closed. The hum is very low now, very steady, very far below the level of attention, somewhere in the body rather than the ears. The corridor goes on. The lights are warm. The air is still. The building breathes. And you are here, moving. Through it, safe and unhurried and warm, in this long and quiet corridor that connects everywhere to everywhere, that knows no particular destination, that simply carries you forward toward wherever sleep is. Forward, quietly, into the gentle, ventilated, immaculate dark.